Hi everyone. I'm Sarah Miller, editor of DC's young adult and middle grade graphic novels. However, I'm here today to talk to author illustrator Rob Justus, who's helping us launch a new line of early reader graphic novels with our flagship title, Superman's Good Guy Gang. Welcome, Rob.
Hey, Sarah. How's it going?
Hey,
Long time no see.
I know, right? So good to see you. Thanks for joining me.
No
If you
problem.
don't know, Rob Justus is an award-winning author, illustrator, and graphic novelist. His graphic novel series, Death and Sparkles, won a Manitoba Young Reader's Choice Award in 2023. In 2022, Rob was selected as the illustrator for the prestigious TD Summer Reading Club in Canada. He's written and illustrated 5 picture books and 2 graphic novels, although Superman's Good Guy Gang makes it 3.
Hmm.
And when Rob isn't telling people he draws superheroes and unicorns for a living, which is probably the best job ever, he is wrangling his 2 young boys in Ottawa, Canada. Superman's Good Guy Gang is his first book with DC and is in stores July 1st, 2025. I'm so excited for Superman's Good Guy Gang. I absolutely adore this book and have had so much fun working with you on it. Can you tell us about how you originally came up with the idea?
Like you had mentioned, you were searching out, starting out the early reader graphic novel lineup. And my agent had sent out just kind of a newsletter like, hey, here's Rob Justus. He likes drawing these things. He also likes drawing superheroes. And right away, I think you pounced on that because you were such a fan of Death and Sparkles.
I was, and I
Yeah.
sure did. I was so excited to see that email come in from Molly specifying that you were interested in superheroes. I don't always see that, so it's very exciting for me.
I grew up in the comics 90s boom, so I was like between 10 and 13 when all the crazy stuff happening in the comic industry in the 90s, like the death of Superman, if it's Superman related,
Oh my
was
gosh.
such a big deal when I was a kid. And I always wanted to draw comic books too. So this has kind of been, I was talked out of drawing comic books when I was younger. And
Terrible.
I know. Then I became a statistician and focus group moderator for a decade, and
Oh my goodness.
then then decided to switch it all up and draw unicorns for a while. So yeah, you approached Molly, and you just said, "All right, what's Rob got for us?" And I got so excited. I think I pitched you 4 ideas within like a week.
That's right.
And said, "Here you go." And I think originally Superman's Good Guy Gang started off a little more Lex Luthor focused.
That's
And
true. I forgot about that.
uh, yeah, and then we sort of pivoted a little bit, knowing that the new movie was launching, and
Hmm.
kind of wanting to be a part of that and the relaunch of Superman to essentially the mass media. So yeah, man, it's been a blast the whole ride.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm glad you left your old life of numbers and analytics behind so you
uh,
could do this.
can't really joke around as much about with that stuff and
No,
very serious reports that I used to have to write.
no, I doubt it. And of course, Superman's Good Guy Gang is about young versions of DC's characters. So Superman is 8 years old, and he befriends a group of fellow superpowered kids, Hawkgirl and Green Lantern. So, of course, we did design this to come out the same month as the Superman movie, which is so awesome. Um, and we got that main cast, Superman, Hawkgirl, and Green Lantern, directly from the movie, even though we've, as I've said, reimagined them for our own book. Superman is not 8 years old in the Superman movie. But this isn't your obvious cast of Justice League members like Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman. What was it like working with this unlikely trio, and how did you manage their dynamics?
I think if you remember the original pitch when we pivoted to Superman did feature Wonder Woman and uh, and the Flash, I believe. and we decided to see where we could sort of include the newer lineup of the Justice League. And from there, went back to researching. I was aware of these characters growing up, but I certainly hadn't read anything, recent about them or, really familiar about their background. So it was fun diving into all the old comics, learning about their origins, and then trying to picture them as 8-year-old kids and how they would approach life, considering, all their background and everything. And, making it kid friendly as well, because some of these can be, a little dark for some of it. So
Yes.
focusing, yeah, especially with Guy Gardner, just
Mhm.
focusing on the fun and what he would be like with, some young friends just sort of palling around that
Yeah.
also just so happen to have fun superpowers.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar, Guy Gardner is the Green Lantern we use in this book. He's also the Green Lantern in the movie, and he is probably the darkest of the Green Lanterns. So taking him, and I remember we had some really fun conversations about like, how do we approach this character for this young demographic? But it was especially fun digging into some of the oldest comics of him, because he doesn't have quite as much of that dark history as he does, as he sort of gains later on. So I think like in one of the earliest comics, he's a gym teacher. So we're kind of like playing with possibly like what would that like gym teacher character be like as a young kid, but still maintaining what makes fans today love Guy Gardner specifically. And I think you really struck that perfect balance of making it appropriate for kids. He doesn't have any daddy issues yet, specifically. But he still feels like Guy Gardner, and you also use that for humor, which I think worked really
Yeah.
well. Like some of his sort of more like um like not darker, but his what would lead to a darker history or
Well, he's
darkest.
still like a little rough around the edges,
Yes, thank
stuff
you.
like
That's
that,
good.
and he
Thank you.
kind of, because he has no fear, because he's, I guess, to become a Green Lantern, you have to have no fear. So he uses that, he approaches trouble very directly, and kind of approaches it head first. But also, like we had talked about early on, or at least my vision was for this, is to keep it very focused on just the characters, the main characters. So we don't really delve into backgrounds too much,
Right.
because this is a book for 5 to 7 year olds. It's really focused on what is happening to them at that present moment, and with it, it's normally just, well, what will be, some very silly scenarios as the
Hmm.
continues.
Yeah. I think you also play the three characters off of each other really well. So obviously like Superman is more of like the good boy, like, raised by Ma and Pa Kent. You have that farm boy inside of him, and then compared to Guy Gardner, who like you said is rough around the edges, which is the perfect description for him. He just doesn't like clearly doesn't play by the rules as much as Superman tries to. Um, and then Hawk Girl is just this spunky, awesome character as well, who really like puts the boys in their place, which I think is so fun too. And Hawk Girl really, no offense to Superman, I mean, we all love Superman, but Hawk Girl really quickly became one of my favorite characters because of this book, and I'm so excited for how you introduce her to young readers because she is one of our lesser known characters to the general public, and obviously the Superman movie will help with that too. But for for the kiddos, I'm excited to see young kids become Hawk Girl fans as well.
I mean, I thought it was important to introduce her as, like she's very confident. She already kind of knows herself a little bit. She's a little more mature than the other two. The other two are, you know, you know, stereotypically they're young boys that like to goof around a lot, while she kind of, helps keep them in line and keep them on track a little bit. But also, she doesn't take any, she doesn't take any guff from them. That's for sure.
Hmm. Yeah.
Especially when you first meet her in the book, that she's accused of being a bad guy, and she says, "Oh yeah, you think so?" And proves them wrong very quickly.
Hmm. Hmm. And it's always good when you have Superman in a book, who's obviously like one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful superheroes, to make sure that the other superhero characters can stand up next to him. And they really do in this title, which makes the dynamic so fun. Speaking of the characters, the designs of the characters are so charming. Not to again like talk too much about Hawk Girl, but I especially love her overalls. I'll show off this spread, this gorgeous spread of the three characters. You can get a glimpse of their costumes there. Um, what was it like redesigning the costumes for these iconic characters, especially for the early reader demographic? Did you have any specific inspo or reference you were drawing from?
I mean, I guess I was sort of thinking a little bit about my kids and all their friends. They do like to dress up a lot, so I wanted to keep it um, that they were pretending to be superheroes a little bit. So they kind of have, they're wearing clothes like, modern clothes for the most part. Like Green Lantern has a puffy vest on, and just essentially like black pants and a black shirt. But with Hawk Girl, especially, I really like the overalls. Kind of keeps it's similar to her superhero design a little bit, but also keeps it a little modern. And then with her mask, it goes together really well and keeps her, in kind of a sporty look that she has, uh, but also, like it looks cool. I think kids can relate to it. And
Hmm.
even Superman, you can kind of tell if you look at some of the pictures around the cuffs uh, of his arms, you can see like he's wearing a sweatshirt almost a little bit.
Mm.
Go full on undies on the outside, but it was just fun coming up with the characters. I think the right away I drew Green Lantern first, and
Mm.
I just knew right away what he was going to look like after looking at a couple references, and that would suit his personality. Just looks a little bit like Nelson from The Simpsons, uh,
Hmm.
and takes on a bit of that motif, and then that mushroom cut. You just really had to
Hmm.
accentuate that the most.
Totally. That's so fascinating that Green Lantern came to you first, or maybe was the easiest to come up with.
Yeah, well, like when it comes to sketching out designs, I just sort of plunk down. I kind of think for maybe a brief moment, and I'll start with a face and then sort of build off from there. So, I knew I wanted Green Lantern to have two big teeth that were sort of separated apart, and give him some freckles, kind of like, what would be like the antagonist in like the Sandlot or something like that, like a
Oh my
50,
gosh, yes.
red-haired kid that is kind of
Yeah.
punk. So
Or almost that character in The Incredibles too comes to
yeah,
mind.
yeah, exactly, absolutely.
Fascinating.
Hmm.
Was it intimidating at all tackling these characters, especially someone like Superman and redesigning their costumes?
Superman was just fun to de-age. Uh,
Mm.
and I think like from compared to like the first sketch that I did to him, I've still like sort of bulked him up a little bit. He's kind of like he's like world's strongest man sort of level of muscle. So he's not, you know, working out at a gym, super cut bodybuilder.
Hmm.
He's soft and
Not
squishy.
chiseled yet.
Yeah, yeah, he's been eating too many milkshakes.
Right.
So
Milkshakes play a huge role in the book.
so he has this softness and kind of squishiness to him, which I feel
Mm.
is pretty approachable.
Yes,
Makes them a lot of fun and easy to sort of pick up. And then
definitely.
with Hawk Girl, I actually went through the most designs with her. A
Mm.
lot of which you didn't see, Sarah.
No, I did
But
not.
yeah, yeah. But I sort of landed on the overalls. But I think at first she was kind of like a soccer player or a volleyball player because she carries around that ball.
Mhm.
which in the comics is actually like a mace or something, like
Mhm.
turned into a volleyball, I think, for the comic book. So just kind of finding an easy design that was iconic to use, and keeping those overalls with the nice green and the yellow mask went
Hmm.
with the traditional kind of comic book color palette. So
Yeah. Well,
mm,
I certainly hope to see some little Hawk Girls, Guy Gardners, and Supermans at Halloween this year.
yeah, yeah. My youngest son loves Guy Gardner. It's hilarious. He just naturally gravitated towards him. Emmett, yeah,
That's great. I
yeah,
I
yeah.
love
I guess
that for
so. We'll
Guy
see.
Gardner. He could really use some love.
Yeah, yeah.
So we can't forget little Lex Luthor. You mentioned that this book actually, the pitch started as more of a Lex Luthor pitch.
Mm.
And so he is still in the book as a 6-year-old evil genius who just wants to be Superman's friend so badly that he goes about it the completely wrong way. For example, he builds a giant milkshake machine robot that goes completely haywire, and the good guy gang have to work together to stop it from destroying the whole park. Can you talk about how you reimagined Lex for this book?
Man, yeah, because it originally came to me as a Lex Luthor sort of based bad guy book. I always gravitate towards the bad guys. I love characters that are misunderstood, and I feel I'm one of these believers in life that everybody's good and that circumstances can make them bad. So I just wanted it that Lex Luthor so desperately wants to play with Superman. But because Superman's young and he's a little cocky at this point, he's not the perfect
Mhm.
Superman that we know. He kind of gives Lex a bit of a hard time, being like, "You can't play with me. You don't have superpowers." And Lex is just so desperate to hang out with him. And in the original version, he ends up befriending I believe Brainiac and Darkseid, and forming like a group because they're all kind of shunned from Superman. So Superman wants to do his own thing, but Lex doesn't really want to give him that space to play, and actually slowly starts turning Lex, in a very humorous way.
Mhm.
He slowly starts turning him evil, whether he means to or not. But it's done under very funny circumstances.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
as the series grows, like you're going to slowly see that those opposing sides take shape.
Yeah, I really enjoy when we're exploring these characters as children, that they're not who they become quite yet, especially as superheroes, because of course they're kids and they still have so much to learn, and they're gonna learn a lot of that by making mistakes. So you really show Superman, like, he wants to do the right thing and he thinks he's doing the right thing, but he's not always. And I think that gives him so much dimension and also makes him relatable to those younger readers.
Absolutely, and kind of briefly touching on my kids again, as my 5-year-old is a spirited child, so he has lots of big emotions and everything like that, and he does have bad days. So sort of thinking about you know uh, every kid is just trying to learn and figure
Yeah.
out and navigate everything is plays a big role in this series as everybody's figuring out who they are and who they are with these powers. So I definitely sort of draw inspiration and keep that in the back of my mind,
Yeah.
because every kid, yeah, learns through their mistakes, and some kids will make a lot of mistakes with some things, and other things they'll excel at, really well. So
Definitely, definitely. I also love how you play the age dynamic between them. Of course, like we said, Lex is 6, Superman's 8, and that's really like also a no-go for Superman. He's like, you can't play with us, you're only 6. And I love how you really tapped into the mind of an 8-year-old there, um, and gave Superman like it's so believable that that's obviously how he would perceive Lex and would think he's so much older and more mature than Lex because he's already an 8-year-old. Like he knows so much more than him.
And that kind of, I take that from my past, like my childhood. I'm the baby of the family. My sister is 2 years older than me, and she's very outgoing and, very extroverted. And I was, pretty quiet as a kid. So I was always trying to keep up with her. And
Mhm.
there were definitely times that she did not want me around,
Mhm.
so trying to navigate all those things. And I sometimes would embarrass myself, trying to keep up with them. And, I think back now and look back and, embarrassed, but, it's given me a wealth of experience to sort of draw on and, really put myself in the mind of Lex, who just wants to keep up and keep up
Yeah.
with the older cool kids.
Yeah, totally. I could see that. Yeah, that works so well. That's great. I love all these personal touches you brought into the book. That it shows, when you read it.
You write what
Totally.
that first milkshake machine that turned into a giant robot when I crossed the wires. Man, that was a problem. Oof.
So, a little more info about our new line of early reader books. We wanted to fill the gap between picture books and middle grade graphic novels. So, all of these books are designed for readers ages 5 to 7, but they're really fun for the whole family too. I can't wait to read this book aloud to my nieces. It's so fun to read aloud, and it's fun to read as an adult as well. So, when thinking about this demographic and ensuring the books are accessible to these new readers, is there anything specific you do to channel to get into that headspace to write and draw for this demo?
I mean, I guess it's a couple things, and we had definitely touched on one of them before. Is to first and foremost make it fun, especially if it's a new reader. There could be some kids that are trying to read this on their own. It could just be kids that are really discovering books. And as I told you a couple months ago, I think back to an interview I heard about the creator of Super Mario when he made Nintendo games. And whenever he worked on a video game, the main thing uh, that he focused on, if it wasn't fun, he would scrap the project and start over. And so I try to make the book as fun as possible. And to do that, I don't overthink things. And I think this is where a lot of grown-ups who write or who work in the book industry forget that you know kids are you know they're complicated, but they are simple at the same time.
Mhm.
And just really want to have fun and have something that they can pick up and laugh at. Kids just want to laugh and play. So if I can reflect that in a book, then I know I've done my job.
Yeah, and this book for sure is the type that makes reading fun, which is so important. Um, And it definitely has all those things. It's funny, it's heartfelt, it's adventurous, it explores different emotions, but in a way that's for sure gonna be accessible to that younger
Yeah.
demographic and especially accessible to the kids reading by themselves for the first time.
And I think, like, yeah, writing this one, especially, like, as I really turned this one out because I got so excited by it. I remember asking, like, can we make more of these in a year? Like, I can turn these out. And you had to pause and be like, I watched your brain just try to figure out, like, no one's ever asked that they want their deadlines moved up before. Uh,
That was wild, I have to say. I've been in
yeah.
this business for over a decade, so
But I had such a blast making it. And we had some conversations where we were sort of starting to nitpick certain things. And I think I called it out. I was like,
Mhm.
I think we're overthinking this. I
Totally.
think this is in the realm of a 5-year-old, and we can just sort of, let it be, or sort of just walk past whatever point we were. I can't remember what it was, but like how kids approach play. they're not overthinking it.
Hmm.
They dress up and they go.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so
I
that's
think
kind
we
of what
were stuck on the logistics of something and we were like going back and forth about it. And then it was like, you know what? It's fine. We
yeah,
don't need to explain why or how this happens because that's not really the point.
yeah, because the book is a very contained, or the series is very contained. It's almost like a situational comedy, like a sitcom,
Hmm.
where a lot of it is going to just take place around the park. So it's just kids meeting up at the park and doing their thing. And as the series grows,
Hmm.
it'll mainly stay centered around this meetup spot.
Yeah. Yeah, which I think is perfect. And speaking of the series growing, so this is the first book in a series. Anything we can look forward to in book two?
Oh man, well, Batman, of course, first and foremost, and this kind of goes back to when you asked me to make those pitches a while ago. I didn't pitch Batman because I assumed somebody else would have been pitching Batman, so I went the other way, and I was like, okay, well, let's give some Superman some love. But now, of course, yeah, book two is going to feature Batman. It's going to feature Mr. Terrific. There may be a detective off that they kind of have to,
My
uh,
gosh.
work together to solve a mystery together, or even though they approach things differently and could be jealous of each other. And then, if we make 1,000 of these, there's so many fun directions as the group grows. They can, create a headquarters that could be like a tree house. We've sort of talked about ideas of like, oh, what if they had a movie night together? How would that be? I've
At
thought,
Wayne Manor specifically, I think.
yeah,
So look
exactly.
forward to that because that's gonna be fun.
Yeah. And then just it'll be a mix of kid-like things and also superhero sort of tropes, which I think is just the perfect blend for this series. So
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
I got so many ideas for this series.
Can't wait. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
No, that's great though. It's so fun because again, like we start off with this core cast who are were so fun to play with and they'll continue to be so fun to play with. But there are of course so many opportunities because we have a whole pantheon of characters to play with and thinking of who we age down and how we depict them in this book is just gonna be so fun. I am very excited for 8-year-old Batman, I think. Or maybe he'll be a little younger, maybe he'll be a little
Yeah,
older.
maybe. Yeah,
Who knows? We'll
potentially.
see.
Yeah,
But that's just gonna be an amazing addition to this already great cast. And I can just already see the dynamic sort of
yeah, yeah.
just exploding. It's gonna be great. And
Absolutely.
Lex could grow. Maybe he'll have his own club, a club of his own with his fellow young supervillain characters.
I think so. Yeah, and then I think could maybe grow to be a competition between the two competing
Ooh,
clubs for all
yes.
sorts of antics.
Yes, yes. So stay tuned, folks. A lot to look forward to. Um, you've talked about this a little bit already, but the book is dedicated to your sons, Miles and Emmett, which is so special. I know they inspired a lot in this book. Anything else specific you haven't mentioned already that maybe surprised you?
Oh man, well, this is, they have definitely had a big influence on this book. It's the first book where they've really sort of paid attention to what I've been doing. I think maybe because I was so excited at the prospect of this, I've talked about this story a lot more with them. But that they've gravitated towards the characters, especially Emmett, my 3-year-old. He whenever he sees Superman out in public, if we're shopping or something, he's, Daddy, it's Superman. He
He's
gets,
like, it's your character.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But like watching their dynamics as they grow, you know, Miles being 5, Emmett being 3, they are learning to play with each other and learning to play well and nicely, and it's interesting to see where conflicts can arise and how they figure it out together. They dress up a ton and do a lot of make believe. So there's just uh, like a very deep well to draw inspiration from for there. And yeah, like I'm so proud that I get to do this book and dedicate it to them as well because I think they're huge fans and yeah, it's cool. Their dad draws superheroes, draws Superman, the superhero, so that's pretty cool.
What could be better? That's
Yeah.
amazing. I love it. I was curious too. You've done a lot of work in picture books specifically. How has some of your earlier work influenced Superman's Good Guy Gang? And again, creating work for this demographic, especially when we're thinking about this early reader line, is the bridge from picture books to middle grade graphic novels.
I mean, with graphic novels, you have a bigger sandbox to play in, first and foremost. Picture books are very contained to, generally 32 pages, maybe 24. They're very, the theme, rules the day. Where this one, we get to play with a little bit more. So these are, while there's a lot of emotion and character development in our graphic novel, it really is a fun plot that sort of drives everything along.
Mm-hmm.
You can create. There is room for more character growth because it's a series. So it's yeah, definitely it's character focused, but it's not too overt with themes. Even though you can get a lot of good stuff and learn from
Mm-hmm.
these books for sure.
Definitely. Speaking of themes, and of course, our audience today is mostly teachers and librarians. What's any tips for teachers wanting to use this book in their classroom?
I mean, I think with this, because everybody's getting to know each other in this book. So at the start of the book, Superman thinks he's alone. He's feeling a little lonely. He's feeling super lonely. Um,
Super.
yeah, and he runs into Green Lantern, and right away they sort of jump to conclusions about each other. So sometimes when you meet somebody, you might draw a conclusion right away, and it could be wrong. And sometimes, you could start off on the wrong foot as well. So it deals with sort of conflict resolution, judging people, making assumptions, and figuring out how to work together, even though you have differences. And I think often, especially from a kid's point of view, kids play, they get mad at each other, then they take a moment for themselves, they rebuild, and they go right back to playing. And
Yeah.
I think this book emphasizes a lot of that, where they may have a disagreement and not trust each other at first, and then be like, "Whoa, wait a sec, you're pretty cool. I like what we're doing, right?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally. Yes.
Yeah.
That's so good. And something I said this already, but like I'm so excited for these books and Superman's Good Guy Gang in particular, just encouraging a love of reading and making reading fun. I think, as a obviously lifelong lover of reading, if you can't tell, that just makes me super happy.
Yeah, yeah, man. I think we have something really special here. And, judging from what happened on Free Comic Book Day this past weekend when I
Right.
was in Houston, seeing a lot of the little kids' reactions, seeing a lot of the parents' reactions
Mm.
to this book, the little free preview that we created, really, you know, made me feel like we're on the right path for creating something special that kids will really enjoy.
Definitely. I'm glad you had that free comic book day
Yeah.
experience. I feel like that's a glimpse of what's to come. So that's awesome.
Yeah, maybe, eh?
So I really can't stress enough how fun and charming this book is. Some of my favorite scenes are when Superman and Green Lantern meet for the first time and they are sort of like showing off each other's powers and they're like, "Can you do this? Can you do that? How about this? How about that?" It's the first time, of course, Superman has met another superpowered kid, so he's really excited. And it's just it feels like, yeah, this is what two 8-year-old superpowered kids would do when they first meet each other. So it's really fun to see that. I also just love every Hawk Girl panel. She's so tough and spunky, and um, she's just a delight every time she pops up on the page. I guess what I'm trying to say is like I think I want to be Hawk Girl. But I'd love to hear what are some of your favorite scenes or panels, and what was the most fun to write or draw?
Man. I mean, I think it's tough because I really enjoyed the whole book. Uh, but I love the cover that we came up with. I find that it's just so fun, kind of captures everybody's personality right away. I think back to when I pitched it to you, just the 4-page preview. So with the way the book starts off is, Superman talking about like I'm 9 years old, or like I'm 8 years old and I'm super, super cool, super awesome, super this, and he's opening up his shirt, starts lasering things and freezing things and then flying around, doing all sorts of fun stuff. I find it just starts on such a fun note. Uh,
Mhm.
but I love when I think my favorite is when Green Lantern and Superman have kind of agreed to like, oh, there's danger. Let's go, figure out what's going on. And then you meet Hawk Girl for the first time, and she's saving puppies. But of course, Superman and Green Lantern assume that she might be a bad guy, and they just jump to the conclusion that, of course, she's not saving them; she's capturing them to maybe eat them. And then they sort of meet up and say they want to stop her from doing that. And my favorite spread of the book was where they confront her and call her a bad guy right off the bat. But I love the giant like fists that they have there. This is like something I would draw when I was a kid. And then
Yeah.
immediately she calls them out, being like, "Okay, you're who's the one with the giant fists here? I'm not the bad guy. Look at you guys." And right away, Superman backs down too. He's like, "Oh yeah, you're right."
It is so funny the way they like sometimes come in with such conviction and then they're like, "Oh, never mind." And like
Yeah,
switch gears sort of like you were speaking about earlier that they can
absolutely.
really change, how they're feeling moment to moment, kind of
Hmm.
flip on a dime. You really depict that really well in this book.
Oh yeah, and that is another thing that I sort of get from my kids as well, is that they can, move on very quickly often, and just sort of change gears very quickly. So
Mhm.
I find that fun.
Amazing. Okay, so what's it really like writing and drawing Superman? Like the Superman, I'm a little biased as a DC employee, of course, but he's kind of the best, one of the best, but like maybe the best comic book characters of all time. I mean, he's obviously one of the original superhero comic book characters, so that's pretty awesome.
I mean, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, growing up, I wanted to draw comic books. I wanted to be like Rob Liefeld or Todd McFarlane or Jim Lee. Those were my idols. And, having been tucked out of it, by my parents, they were a little worried about, well, is there any money in comics or anything like that? And for things to circle around, I guess 20 years later, where I have this opportunity. Uh, I tell everybody, and I've told you numerous times, that it's like, 9-year-old Rob would be over the moon with what he's doing right now. So to be able to draw, the OG superhero Superman, who, as a Canadian as well, was created partially by a Canadian. So I find that an honor to sort of keep that legacy going. But I also have so much freedom to create my version of Superman that I think would be fun for kids. So it is like just the coolest honor. I'm a huge Superman fan now as I've started working on this project, like learning more and more about him, and reading about how many great comic books are out there about Superman. So like it's an honor to be the first out of the gate for this early reader lineup.
Yeah,
It's cool. Yeah.
definitely.
I'm lucky, that's for sure. I'm a lucky guy.
Well, so are we. So are we to have you. That's so wonderful. What's the one thing you want readers to take away from this book?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, fun. I just want them to have a fun time, first and foremost. And especially, uh, you know, foster a love of books. If books are fun, kids are going to gravitate towards that. And there's so much competition for kids' time and attention
Hmm.
that something as old school as a physical copy of a book that a kid can sit quietly and focus on, laugh at, take inspiration from. They can go back and start copying characters and drawing that way. There's so much great stuff from these books. So if they find it fun, then I've done my job.
Definitely agreed.
Hmm.
You're also working on another early reader series timed to, I don't know, another big superhero movie in 2026, Supergirl, with your next series with DC called Supergirl's Superheroes, Crypto's Big Break. Can you give us a little teaser about that title?
Oh man, well that's definitely another fun book that is really off the wall, where Supergirl and Crypto are good pals, and Crypto's a good boy, but sometimes he gets maybe a little too excited and maybe a little too impulsive, and might stir things up a little bit and create some problems that Supergirl has to fix up. And then it involves a hilarious cast of characters of some zoo animals that just so happen to gain some superpowers from famous Justice League characters. And when you're an animal that's stuck in a cage and you suddenly have superpowers, chances are you might, break out and see and cause a big commotion in the city. That's for sure.
Yeah, I love this book so much, and I'm so excited that it's gonna follow Superman's good guy gang and again be another tie-in with the Supergirl movie. Of course, Krypto is a big character. He's already, it seems, the breakout star of the
Yeah.
Superman movie, so it's so fun to see you give Krypto a spotlight as well. If you don't know, Krypto is actually Supergirl's dog. And the zoo animals are hilarious. You have a rhino gets Batman's powers and wears his costume. A sloth becomes the Flash, which is just like so perfect. Who else? What other animal would be the Flash? Um, a young, precocious seal becomes Wonder Woman. A lion becomes Superman. Am I missing anyone?
I think that's the original
That's
four.
the
Yeah.
core. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then with Crypto in there, because of course Crypto can talk to the other animals, but the animals can't talk to the human. So it is just an absolute delight.
Yeah.
Definitely something to look forward to follow Superman's good guy gang.
Well, Supergirl definitely tries talking to the animals, but they're not sure what she's doing.
She does. She does. In a similar way, I try talking to my cat, and I think I sometimes accidentally offend her.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I'm so excited for that book. Anything else you want to add for the audience? How can they find you outside of this interview?
Oh man, well, I guess they can look me up on my website that I update every now and again at robjustus.com, and not it's not like the Judge Justice, it's like just us. So from its Swedish background of Eustace, and then you can also find.
How many people are saying like it's so cool that someone named Rob Justice or that your name is Rob Justice writing and drawing superhero comics? I've gotten that a few times, like when
Yeah,
people see the cover and they're like, That's almost too good.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I've gotten that a lot, but it's pretty cool. It helps, that's for sure.
Hmm. Helps with the
And
overall brand,
absolutely, yeah,
the
yeah, exactly.
Justice brand.
And then, most people can follow me on Instagram. That's probably the social media that I'm most active on. You can find me on Facebook, but really, it's focused on Instagram at Rob Justus. Yeah, at Rob Justus, all one word. That's where it is. Or you could just go to a store and pick up one of my books. And
Hmm.
come July 1st, hopefully Superman will be everywhere. Superman's a good guy.
Yep.
Yeah,
Count on that. It sure
yeah.
will. Definitely, I definitely recommend following Rob for just fun, delightful artwork in your feed.
Yeah, yeah. I post some behind the scenes stuff of some of my sketches, my morning warm-ups, which often are just loose colored pencil drawings that are always fun to do.
Hmm. Definitely. Well, I always have a blast chatting with you, Rob. Thanks again for joining me.
No problem.
I absolutely can't wait for Superman's Good Guy Gang to reach fans old and new. As we said, Superman's Good Guy Gang Book 1 comes out July 1st, but you can check out a digital galley in your tote bags now. So we hope you enjoy DC's debut early reader graphic novel, a super powered story to power up readers. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you guys.
Bye.